This week's class takes a look at the Pensa Patada Direct. We all have the direct kick, but what we all need to do is make sure we have it functional throughout the different levels. Developing all-round fighting skills is a big project, as we enter into the infinite arena of no limits. We all hear these words a lot in the realm of self-defence, but we must give value to these words. Unlimited is exactly that. No limit in any thought, action or dimension. What is the limit to the front kick really? It's whatever we perceive it to be. If we think it only has a specific role in the fight, then we need to develop our mind a set a little more, as the direct kick has many incredible applications in an urban environment. The diagonal kick opens up an interesting door of study. Can you think what it is? Well, we'll answer this one in a minute, but first let's look at a couple of obvious points. The front kick is kind of obvious, as is the classical side kick, but the diagonal kick lives just in the middle of the two, and in many cases its form and structure may look very unsavoury to a classically trained martial artist. Okay, to answer the last question, what door of investigation do you think the diagonal kick opens up? It opens up the study of the shoe, which is clearly an awesome weapon in the street. The diagonal kick really begins to exploit the potentials of the shoe as a formidable weapon. I know it's obvious now we've said it, but answer yourselves honestly. Have you ever really studied the functionality of different footwear in your daily training? We walk around in them all day, so clearly we need to study them. The oblique kick is another of those kicks that most of us have already trained to some degree or another. What we will see over time is just how many possibilities this simple kick possesses. It has many classical applications that we have seen exploited in different martial arts, but the oblique kick has its own unique flavour in the street. But before we start looking at other possibilities within the oblique, we need to first make sure we have it operational in different levels. Again, we have the shoe to consider. Depending on our style of footwear, this will give us different possibilities in which to exploit the kick to its full potential. Now we isolate the kick in the high line. You look how Roland makes a very basic free play, but applies whichever kick he feels is appropriate to his positioning. This is a great way to develop our instinctive application. If we play at a moderate speed like this, then it gives us time to think and feel where we are and what we're trying to do. But little by little we will feel the instinct start to take over as we develop more natural abilities in this area of study. In the end, if we train correctly and with a clear objective in mind, then we will achieve what we want. We all know by now that it is the instinct that talks, not the techniques. We need to play in order to provoke. This is how we learn to respond spontaneously. Playing around with the kicks is the same as the punches, or any other weapon for that matter. We're just learning to exploit angles. Like we said before, we all carry a massive conditioning as regards to everything in our lives. It's impossible not to, as our past experiences are all we have to go by. So it's not always easy to view things without making preconceived judgments. But that's what we need to do. If we want to exploit the potentials within our training, we need to break free from conditioned thoughts. We have a simple analogy we use a lot. If we are travelling to a place that we've never visited before and without a map book, then it's very possible we get lost. Just as in the training, when we're not quite sure what it is that we're supposed to be doing. But once we've been there a few times, we know where we are, how to get there, plus we start learning all the shortcuts. Basically meaning, the more times we visit a place, or in our case, an area of training, then the more familiar everything starts becoming, and we learn how to use the shortcuts and save time. We have found over the years that many people studying self-defence are unwilling to look or even consider the fact that there may be new or improved ways of doing something. It is this old and very insecure kind of mentality that inhibits growth and evolution of the arts. Hence the transmission to the potential students has a massive limit imposed upon it. This limit clearly hinders the growth and development of the student and is in complete contradiction to what the arts are supposed to be teaching. It is our challenge, and by that I mean all of us studying the arena of self-defence, to keep pushing the boundaries of the human mind. Creativity is the fuel of evolution, and we humans are incredibly effective at adapting and evolving. If we just apply our natural abilities to our study of the arts, then we will find and discover many new and incredible things that many people can't see, and the only reason they can't see them is because they don't want to. The objective here with the opponent is for us to learn how the kicks fit into the different ranges with great ease. It's just a case of lots of practice. The study of street kicking is very different to that of kicking within the dojo. There are so many different factors to take into consideration. The problem with a lot of people is not the fact that they are stupid or don't understand when it comes to talking about the martial arts, but just that of confusion. What is the best martial art? For us this is a stupid question. First and foremost, people need to decide what they're looking for. Then, and only then, can they decide what is best for them, not what is the best martial art. People quite often say to us, KFM looks a bit like this martial art, or a bit like that martial art. We always say, KFM looks like nothing, it looks like everything. And what do we mean by that one? Well, you decide. A question, which martial art or style invented the front kick? Not sure? Okay, which martial art invented the elbow? Can you see where this is going? Not yet? Okay, here's another. Which style invented the hammer fist then? Now you've got it. That's right, none of them. It's just what the human does instinctively. Just watch a young child with no martial arts training whatsoever. What do? Kick you in the shin, foot stomp you, hammer fist you, scratch you, bite you, and if that's not enough, they round it all off with a headbutt to the groin. Not bad for somebody with no martial arts training, eh? Shin kicking is something that all bouncers and door personnel will tell you is an extremely effective and almost impossible to read form of attack. Yet a young child does this without thinking, and that's because these weapons live in our blood. They were never invented by anybody or any style. They were born out of our instinctive predatory inheritance. We need to understand about our predatory inheritance. The martial arts has become lost in some aspects of its transmission, and this is one of them. We need to truly know who we are and what is our genetic history, because it's far more powerful than any style or martial art. Remember, style is just one person's interpretation of how they best use what they think is the only way. Each and every one of us possesses the most incredible genetic history within our blood. This is the part we need to cultivate. All of the things in play in this predator exercise are things that a child will do anyway. Really, we only have the kick, punch, grab and a bit of swinging around going on. Obviously we are developing them to a much higher level, but all of these actions come from within, and not from what one person dictates to us what he thinks is best. By playing around with the predator exercise, it should teach us, if we're listening properly, that we can do pretty much anything if we've developed the ability. For example, with a kick, if we are stood in front of somebody and we are told to kick the opponent's back leg, one answer may be to say, yeah, but I would never do that, it doesn't make any sense. Well, as we all know by now, that just depends, doesn't it? Another thing that we will feel inside the predator exercise is how the concept of left lead and right lead disappears. It just becomes an arm or a leg, and if we can touch it, then it means we can destroy it. That's all that matters really. Can we destroy the attack? Obviously many attributes come into play, but they are only the consequence of our persistent training. One thing we would like you to do is video yourself training the two-man predator and then study it. This keeps us in touch with reality. By that, we mean it makes us value and appreciate the true fact that applying simple things is not easy, and definitely not as easy as many profess them to be. The video camera is a great training aid as it reflects the truth. It also helps us to see things from a different perspective. I remember many years back whilst videoing a training session, one of the guys watching shouted across the room, "Hey Andy, you keep dropping your hands during the kick," to which I obviously replied, "No, I'm not." "Oh yes you are," he said. "Show me the video," was my next reply. Oh dear, there I was dropping my hands, and I was convinced otherwise. So the camera is a good teacher as it reflects the things that we cannot see ourselves. Well, another week finished. Hopefully across the next days we should have a bit of fun with the kick inside the two-man predator drill. If we absorb the fact that the kick can operate in all ranges, then we have done well. It means we are letting go of preset thoughts of how the kick should be used. Because remember, we can use it however we want, only we need to develop the functionality of our findings. Till next week, have fun. This week we are going to develop the double strikes, and in this first shot we can see Roland showing the simple double knee. As with all double strikes, there are many reasons as to how and why. It's not just for the sake of it. Everything we develop has a reason, otherwise we wouldn't waste our precious time working on something if it didn't give us an answer. You look how simple the development process can be. It's all about how we approach things mentally. For example, we are not learning how to do a knee from Muay Thai. We're learning how to use the knee, that's all. What drives how we develop each weapon? Well, if you think about it, it depends on what our objectives are. In its technical form, the diagonal knee looks pretty similar to the direct knee, but clearly has different potentials, as again, if it had nothing to offer, we wouldn't be bothered with it. As we will discover in time, each of the basic weapons that we study all have a great deal more to offer than is first apparent. This is the cool part, finding applications that other people can't see at first glance. Okay, in this shot, Roland combines the two knee attacks. This is the same principle as combining any other weapons that we've learned previously, but the key is how well we can transit and connect. If we don't have the ability to connect the weapons together, then we're going to struggle with the application side of things. And as always, it is the development of the mechanics during the technical side of our study that will enable us to connect the weapons effectively. Okay, this is a cool application of the knee. Roland shows a simple way in which this can be trained with the focus pads. At present, this particular application of the Roddy Picker is aimed at attacking somebody that's down on the ground. Obviously, there are many more extremely interesting applications of the Pensa Roddy Picker, but this is just one of them, and a very effective one. Now let's take a quick look as Roland adds the punching simultaneously. If the mechanic for the Roddy Picker is good, then any other weapon that we decide to add will connect itself very nicely. Can you see what's different in this clip? Roland now uses our simple climbing combination process. In the first shot, we saw Roland use the alternate punch. Now he uses the punch and elbow combination. And now in this shot, he combines the alternate punch and kick. As we can clearly see, there are thousands of ways to develop everything that we touch, and it's our job to investigate and develop these further. Now Roland starts working the technical developments with Ruben. Notice how Roland automatically carries the kick, Pensa attack, highline trapping, and finally the Roddy Picker. Obviously we can connect with the lead kick or the rear kick, and you can mix and match any of the kicks we've trained so far. Plus notice how Roland can attack either leg, as Ruben's initial reaction to the kick and Pensa attack will dictate which leg Roland destroys. The diagonal knee at this present time operates quite similar to that of the direct knee. It just means that we develop our ability to respond with varying angles at this moment in time. Simple, yet if we don't train it, then we will pay a big price later. You look at how effective the simple Garaqueo can be at redirecting the body. Now we can see how each simple movement, when connected with the next, really starts building a network of movement. Combining the two knee attacks is like combining the jab and the uppercut. One angle, if it connects well, will consequently expose another line of attack. When we really start to understand how to drive the body and what action creates specific reactions, then we're starting to do okay. Now we can start to see and appreciate why the Garacuello has the ability to take somebody to the ground, and when we can actually connect simple weapons together, then they become 10 times more effective. Inserting a simple knee-in attack before the takedown helps destroy the mind as well as the body, plus gives us a lot more potential options. And again, you look how Roland mixes the Roddy Picker at the end with a simple punch, punch elbow or punch kick combination. Okay, let's watch Roland mixing it all together. What can we see? Pensador, pensa patada, puño, pensa tac, Garacuello, pensa rodilla, takedown, Roddy Picker cambiada, pensa codo, mono escala. We've actually got quite a lot of things kicking off now, but be careful not to lift the tempo too much at this stage, especially if it's at the sacrifice of good clean mechanics. Remember, this is still development. It's where we try to perfect our form and catch a little rhythm, so don't get carried away yet. It's a proven fact that young children have a learning capacity second to none. Unfortunately, adults are not so fortunate. If we want to learn anything new, then we need to study hard and pay great attention to what we're doing, and even then it's still difficult. Basically, if we don't make a real concerted effort to step into the unknown or put ourselves in a place not familiar with what we already know, then how can we expect to discover new things? You look how the step-by-step process is the key to achievement. There are no magical ways to get what we want. And in the same vein, if we expect our abilities to grow without effort, then we will be greatly disappointed. Passion, dedication and discipline are all essential ingredients that we need if we are to succeed in any part of our life. If we watch carefully, we can see that Roland is making the most of the work. But notice how Ruben is inserting a counter beat. It's only one beat and in the same place every time at present. But obviously we can insert a counter beat any place, any time. Only we need to understand what the answers are before we really open the door to total free play. Hopefully, we are starting to have a great value and appreciation for how much work goes into developing what many people consider to be easy. This is one problem that we have encountered across the years when investigating other arts and mindsets. I think the catchphrase that has stuck with us over the years, and that's just because we've heard it so many times in the past, is this: yeah, it's a bit like what we do. The reason people say things like this is because they really think they know everything. This kind of person finds it almost impossible to learn, as they are unwilling to stop, look and listen. Clearly this is the consequence of an inflated ego. Many years ago, back in the early 90s, I used to be a VIP personal trainer. All my clients were high-profile businessmen, and the one amazing thing that I absorbed from being around these kind of people on a daily basis was their incredible thirst for knowledge and to understand how things worked. They would always listen very carefully, think and then ask why. A good businessman will always listen carefully to see what's on offer. He knows that things are constantly moving and he needs to pay big attention if he wants to stay ahead of the game. Inflated egos act like a blindfold. You can't see anything, even if it's looking you straight in the face. So let's keep our learning healthy. Stop, look, listen and digest, and then finally take action. The one opponent exercise is the one-stop prep station, as we like to call it, before we throw ourselves and all the work we are trying to apply into the melting pot, as it were. In this predator exercise, you look how the Garaqueo is used to redirect the opponent. It also touches the subject of the human shield, only we don't open this door at the present moment, but it's a natural consequence of redirecting an opponent, therefore a subject of study for us in later classes. Another thing that we should have acknowledged for ourselves by now is the true value of the pensador in a multi-opponent situation. It's just not possible to keep the hands low as we receive heavy attacks to the head way too often. And hopefully now we can really understand that the pensador is not a new technique but a true evolution of instinct. So now if somebody asks you, what is the pensador, or questions its validity, stick them in the middle of two guys with focus pads. You know the exercise by now. And just watch how long it takes for the guy in the middle to make the pensador. Not very long. The best bit is, he won't even know that he's doing it. And only if you show him the replay on the video will he actually believe you. Again, in this predator, you look how important the simple grab is, and what a vitally important area of study this is. It's a great weapon because we have done this instinctively since birth. So once again, it just makes total sense for us to study and develop a greater ability with something that we will already do instinctively. We have arrived at the last exercise of this class again, so let's watch while I'm working through the predator from sitting. As we can see very clearly now, catching the ability to operate effectively in each level isn't just cool, it's essential, as without this ability there will be a massive part of the equation missing. standing, kneeling, sitting and laying, which is an area we will study very shortly, all exist. Therefore it's not even debatable whether we need to study them or not. If you watch carefully, you will see that there are a multitude of hidden attacks in there, only they're not being shown right now, as this is the yellow grade and not the black grade. You may find many of those hidden attacks yourself, if you're training hard, and there are hundreds of them, all just sat there waiting to be discovered. The best bit, this is only the beginning, and we're only just getting started. If you're enjoying the training in the yellow belt, then the future will expose many more amazing developments, most of which have never been seen before. In the last class we studied the roddy picker, and as always within the KFM process, once we have learnt how to use a certain weapon in attack, we then need to study and develop how to destroy it. In these first few shots, we have isolated the movement so you can see exactly what we're trying to achieve. Remember, the technique is one thing, what we need to develop is the application in motion. Now we put the technique, as people like to call it, back into the mix. Here we see Ruben take Justo to the ground and attack with the knee. Obviously for demo purposes, Ruben is only showing the knee very lightly. Justo plays with a simple pensador and finds the angle in which to destroy the incoming attack. Okay, now we are going to take a look at the basic controls on the ground. First we see Justo shadowing the control 1. Justo then shows the basic technical application with Ruben. Notice how he uses the pensador to drive Ruben's arms. And again, watch how Justo controls the situation and exits with the roddy picker. Although again it's only shown very lightly in this shot. It's important that we always develop the technical movement in the shadow first. We have followed this process all of our lives, and to great benefit. Let's take another look as Justo walks through the technical application. Make sure you control properly on exiting the position. Now we look at Justo shadowing ground control 2 from a side shot. Now Justo shows the technical application with Ruben. If we watch carefully, we can see how the pensador forms a foundation of the basic control. We can see another clip of Justo shadowing the ground control 2, this time from a front shot. As soon as they hit the floor, you look how Justo immediately controls Ruben's body with the elbow, and at the same time controls the arm and the head. On exiting, Justo controls Ruben's head with his knee. This time, notice how Justo uses the pensador and enters the control under Ruben's arm. Upon doing so, Justo immediately traps Ruben's arm with the candado. And yet again, you look at the outline shape of the control. Yep, it's the pensador. Let's just watch that same entry point one more time. As we always state, this is the first time we've looked at the ground up until now, and the work is extremely basic. There is a long way to go yet with the study of the ground, but the ground is a very, very interesting subject. This is a quick insert, just so we can take a closer look at how Justo controls the shape with the elbows whilst trapping the arm. Justo is being very kind to Ruben in this shot, as he would normally be grabbing big handfuls of flesh. Gleefully today, Ruben escapes that one. Justo now shows the technical shadow for control 3. Once again, watch how Justo uses the elbows to drive the opponent, because this is the beginning. Our objective is only that of control, but remember, this is not our ultimate objective. Here's another clip of the technical shadow. We have lots of things to talk over regarding the ground, but it's impossible to say everything in the first instance. So as normal, step by step is the way. Now we can see the technical shadow of Control 4, top position. The way in which we use the fourth control is a bit different to that of the classical interpretation of this position. Notice how Justo traps the arm with the leg and controls Ruben's face with the elbow. Again, watch carefully how Justo exits the control. He doesn't just relax and stand up. You would never do this in the street, and hence we never do this in the training. This is another quick insert shot so that you can see how Justo controls Ruben as he exits the control. Simple but effective. Moving on to our last control in this week's class, Control 5, from the bottom position. In this clip, watch how Justo controls Ruben's head as they hit the floor. He then uses the elbow to drive for the head crush. From this angle we can see how Justo drives for the head crush and how he still controls on the exit. Clearly our intention is to never enter the ground at all during a fight, if possible, as in truth it's a disaster and a massive problem. But should we ever arrive there, we need to understand how the ground functions, along with all the associated problems that go with it. Let's look at just one reason why we may arrive in Control 1. Justo is attacking, and whilst applying the Roddy Picker, Ruben attacks back and breaks Justo's balance, hence he hits the ground unintentionally. As you can see in the next two clips, Justo is putting his hands down when he arrives on the floor. Just so we are all clear on one thing, this is for safety reasons only. It's not possible to drop all your body weight and elbows onto the training partner without the risk of a big damage. As long as we are clear about the true objective, we may need to adapt some movements for safety reasons. If we understand why we are or are not doing a thing, then there's no problem. In this clip, Ruben catches Justo on the inside of the leg, thus forcing him to fall slightly different. It is the answer from the opponent that dictates the way in which we fall, but it is our level of understanding and practical ability that gives us the answer. Let's watch as Justo uses a pensador to land on Ruben. Clearly at tempo, this is applied in a ballistic fashion, as it's a full-on attack. Even if Ruben did make the counter, he is still going to receive. Once again, Husto receives a slightly different energy from Ruben, hence we hit another control. As you can see, we don't choose what we want, it's what we do with what we get that counts. Look how Husto controls ahead. Again, what is the true objective here? Well, you decide depending on the situation. But clearly this is a relaxed and non-aggressive control, so as not to damage Ruben. It doesn't take much really to understand what this movement would actually be. In Control 5, the objective is the destruction of the opponent's head. If we up the intensity of this movement, we will create great damage to the opponent's neck and face. Hence all of these movements are trained with respect and common sense. Notice how Husto controls Ruben's head, even on the disengagement, and as always, this control has much more intense application attached to it than we're showing here. Can we all see that we enter the ground, not because we choose to, but because the situation dictates? As we now start to study and develop the ground, lots of questions will arise, and so long as they are intelligent questions, we will evolve this area quickly. The first and most simple thing that we know, but must reinforce daily, is the fact that we are playing in an unlimited environment. Our sole intention is to destroy and get up as fast as possible. We have no interest in staying on the ground and rolling around. If we watch carefully, we can see that when Ruben gives Roland a different energy, Roland adopts a different control. It's not Roland's choice, he gets what he's given, and it's Roland's instinctive action-reaction ability that will dictate the answer. Again, you look, if we follow the process step by step and week by week, we will develop a high degree of ability and understanding in a very short space of time. We don't need 20 years or more, like we are often led to believe. That's just baloney, and so not the case. KFM produces and develops an extremely high number of very talented and educated instructors as a direct consequence of the Urban X syllabus. There is so much information for us to study that it's almost a frustration, but the really cool part is that we will never have it all anyway. It's just impossible. We would need 10 lifetimes and more, and then we'd only just be scratching the surface, which is good, as it means our learning curve is infinite. Note how Roland traps Ruben on the ground. This shape gives us a good position to fight from, and stresses the opponent immensely. This reduces the responsibility of the opponent, and let's not forget, we don't intend staying on the ground for more than a few seconds if we can help it. If we watch carefully, we can also see how Roland controls Ruben's other arm as he disengages. This movement is not exploited yet, but you can clearly see that this is an arm wrench or a break. When training in the one opponent section of the class, don't forget that the objective is to play around with energy and associated problems. Don't just mimic the technique, or you'll never catch the functionality of the work. Obviously in the beginning we need to learn the work, or technique as people like to call it, but as soon as we have got the work down, we then need to stress it, otherwise it just becomes a case of who can do the choreographed technique the fastest. Now as we move into the two-man predator, it's plain to see that the action-reaction process starts to take over. And again, as always with the training, we may isolate a piece of work, but we must also learn how to operate and keep it all together under pressure. I personally have been with and witnessed very talented martial artists receive a severe beating in the street. I think this is a common story, but the question is, why does this happen so often? Because there is a reason, and I think we all know what it is. If you watch any CCTV footage of real fights outside nightclubs, it's a real mess, highly charged, and nothing like the techniques that are usually associated with self-defense programs. As we said already, high-speed choreography is one thing, looks great for demonstrations and the likes, but that's about it really, as it bears no resemblance to the chaos of a real fight at all. We would just like to make one thing very clear. We don't think that KFM has all the answers, as nobody does. But what we do concern ourselves with is a genuine study of the urban arena. And a street fight is like a minefield. One wrong step and you lose. Well, in closing, you should have fun with this class, as there are 5 controls on the ground to test, and then find all the problems associated with them. This is only the beginning of the study on the ground. There is a long way to go yet, but this will keep everybody busy for a while. Have fun and see what problems you can find, as it's the problems that will show us the answers. Now we touch yet another very interesting area of study in this week's class, changing the jacket as we like to call it. This is an evolution of the counter, when the hunted becomes the hunter, or as we say in KFM, redefining predator and prey. Many of the things that we learn, in truth, are very simple, but it's not the technique we're after, it's the essence. Essence is the fruit of understanding, and it is our ability to apply the concepts and principles we have studied. So rather than just trying to accumulate more and more techniques, our goal is quite clearly ability driven. Technique collecting is like a viral infection. It's very easy to catch this deluded mentality. For example, many seem to think the more techniques they know, then the better they must be, and that's so not the case. Unfortunately, this is a very common mentality amongst the martial art community, but it's also a very dangerous one. We must pay attention at all times to make sure we never adopt this deluded mentality. Developing our weapons in a systematic way is just like learning scales in music. You learn music scales note by note, and then learn how to blend it all together to create music. Our process is the same. We need to learn piece by piece, and then blend it all together. It would be really cool if there was a magical way to develop our ability. Alas, it's just not the case. Nothing can replace dedication and hard work. If we want the fruit, then we first need to plant the seed, after which we need to water it and cultivate it on a daily basis. Our learning process is no different. Again, it would be great if we could have and absorb all the information and knowledge all at once, but we can't. Information overload is like pouring a jug of water on that seedling. It drowns and dies, but drip feed it day by day and watch how it flourishes. In this next development we just add the takedown. The concept here is for the guy on the ground to get back to his feet as fast as possible and take the opponent's back. Can you also see how the human shield is lurking there again? You look how we can take the same exercise, but by changing the nucleus, i.e. the focal point, we can create a whole new flavour, but it's still the same work. Extracting more from the same is fulfilling. A technique is fixed and set. It has a beginning and it has an end. But where does the fight start and where does the fight end? Think about it. The technique is only the first part of the jigsaw. The sad part is that many believe it's the last part. Consequently, the picture can never really be seen. Hence, the need to invent one becomes necessary. Because a lot of people are led to believe that the technique is the answer, they are unable to look beyond it, and therefore never really develop the full potential of the thing that they have learnt. We must never become a victim of this somewhat old and outdated mentality. Once again, this is just like music. If you only play the technique, i.e. the scales, then you're not playing music, you're playing the technique, which is only the foundation to the actual music itself. Unfortunately, many people in the martial arts only play scales, and this is one of the holes that exists in the martial arts. The problem with the human is that we always think we know better. better than everybody else, and that everybody else is stupid. Martial arts in the self-defense arena is full of opinionated masters, all of whom have the answers, or so they like to think. But by understanding in the beginning that our possibilities are infinite, helps us to balance in the mind that there are no perfect answers to the questions that may not have arisen yet. That's why we need to be constantly studying, investigating and evolving on a daily basis. The root of this problem is conditioning. By that, we mean that all our thoughts, opinions and ideologies are all a consequence of our own experiences in life. The problem is that we judge and compare everything else that we see and hear by those past experiences. We must never forget that even the things we learn and discover are never set in stone. Things evolve constantly, and so must we. I read a lot of quotes in publicities that say, over 25 years experience in the martial arts. What exactly does that mean? 25 years of what? Product development is a word used in business. It means to be in a constant state of progress. This is only possible due to time invested in research and development. Well, what we're all doing is no different. Teaching the same thing year in, year out is boring, but worst of all, it's stagnant. Be like water. Our words preach a lot in the martial arts. But as we all know, when water is flowing and travelling, everything in it flourishes. But what happens when that water stops running? Everything in it stagnates and dies. If an art is not in a constant state of evolution, then really it's missing out, because everything else around us is evolving so fast. A computer is a perfect example. When it was first invented, it was groundbreaking, beyond what most people could have ever imagined. But would you still like to be working on a 15-year-old computer? Obviously not. And why not? Because you know a 15-year-old computer is a dinosaur, and the human has researched, evolved and developed better ways of doing the same thing, only 1,000 times more efficiently. Changing the jacket is one of those principles that will teach us many things. Confusion is a real part of a frantic street scenario. Stress and panic go hand in hand, as many times nobody really knows what the heck is going on. Investigating this reversal of roles on a daily basis will wake up all kinds of emotions and questions. And remember, it's the questions that provoke the answers. We first need a question before we can give an answer. Presuming is the same as trying to read the future. For most of us it's just not possible. And if I could read the future, let me tell you, I'd be the richest lottery winner of all time. Control 4 has a slightly different feel to it than the classical mount position most people are familiar with. The main reason for this adaptation is the fact that we have no real interest in staying on the ground if we can help it. Hence this changes what we want and expect from the mount style position. When we have different objectives, it redrives the way we develop a specific thing. That's not to say that the classic formula is less effective. It just means that it has a different role in its sporting environment. What we want and expect from our use of this position is quite different. Hence we search for different applications than are usually sought on the tatami. guard, many times in the sporting world, is a strategically chosen position to fight from. By that, we mean that many fighters throw the guard. Now obviously within the confounds of the MMA arena, this works very well. But on the urban street, bottom position on the ground is quite simply not a good place to be. Therefore, once again, we are searching for different answers to those favoured by the sport grappler. So why may we arrive in this position? Well, probably due to unforeseen circumstances, i.e. not by choice, confirming the fact that we don't want to be there. Thus we need to escape as soon as possible. Not easy, that's for sure, especially in a multiple opponent situation, but at least we know what the objective is. As mentioned before, the changing of the jacket principle generates all kinds of problems, the best being total confusion. Even when we know who should be doing what before we start, once it all kicks off, it soon starts to get confused. And many times, especially in the beginning, nobody knows who's supposed to be doing what to who. Little by little, this confused environment seems to get a bit clearer, but never perfect, as each and every time we train, we get different problems and different energies. Hence our emotional state is never fixed, and this changes the way in which we function, from second to second. Because these classes are in the early stages of development, it's impossible to show and explain everything in a short clip. But we are instigating many questions and problems here. Can you see one obvious problem that is shown here purposely? Yes or no? Well, where are we facing when we hit position 2? Exactly, the ground. We lose sight of the other opponents. Does this have a perfect solution? No, but it does open a very interesting door of investigation. Another thing that this kind of work starts to confirm is how the simple grab plays a major role in most street fights. Therefore, it's also another area of serious study. In fact, everything that we touch upon is a very serious subject of study. The normal rule of thumb in grappling is to keep the pressure and weight on the opponent, but this is exactly the concept we want to learn how to manipulate. Opening and closing doors is the only sure way of gaining an intended and provoked reaction from the opponent. By manipulating the emotions of the opponent, this usually generates a pretty fast reaction as well. And time is quite clearly of the essence when on the ground in the street. I can remember when we started to investigate the ground deeper, it was almost a frustration, as everything we touched just opened another door, and every door we did open opened 10 more. But it was amazing at the same time, because it answered all kinds of problematic scenarios. and obviously the more you look, the more you find.
Maybe we can see a little clearer here why we're trying not to enter into the classical mount position if we can help it. Obviously we don't choose, but it's definitely not our objective. One simple reason is that our escape route is a little faster, plus we are slightly more able to deal with the change of incoming attacks. The problem with the ground in the street is not just a problem of the immediate opponent, but all those around us as well. This clearly changes everything. This is why we have no intention, if we can help it, of spending 1 second longer there than needed. Finally we arrive at Control 5. This is another bad situation as we are on the bottom and need to fight our way out of a very difficult situation, whilst trying to deal with the potential of receiving a vast onslaught of kicks coming in from all directions. As always, there is no perfect solution. If there was, we would all know what it is, and somebody would be extremely rich. What we can do though is compile all our years of experience and investigation in order to help us look at and study the right things. This will certainly help in our never-ending quest to understand the chaotic world of street fighting and the infinite possibilities that exist all around us. Till next week, train hard but train wise.